even if you were trying to do smaller dollar things, you would want to stay away from residential. The vast majority of this stuff is not interesting to me.
If anyone ever tells you it's not about the money, it's 100% about the money.
Buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. We have a good one today. We're on with Kyle OHare. We're talking distressed debt funds, back lenders, all kinds of weird machinations, what happens behind the scenes with loans when they start to go bad, how you buy them and make some money off of them. In a deviation from our usual programming, today's episode is going to be for smart guys by smart guys. Tune in. Hope you love it. Welcome in another edition of the Real Estate Anonymous podcast. As we fondly say, for dumb guys by dumb guys. Eric Weatherholtz, Brett Moss, and special guest Kyle OHare is with us today. We're going to get into some distress deals and buying the debt and lots of other fun ways to make money. And we'll talk about why every rich kid you went to college with is from the same high school in Connecticut. It's a thing that we've traced. But it's going to be a fun one today. We'll kind of go around the horn here. Eric, what's new in your world?
I had this thought last night of what happened to LEED certification. Do you remember this? Buildings would be
I saw that tweet, yeah.
Platinum, gold, silver. And it was one of the great...
I think energy prices just had a little uptick.
But one of the great capers of all time. It was sort of this nebulous thing, but if you got a sticker, then you were deemed sort of a more righteous person. Your building was more righteous. And I think it just sort of came out that there was no premiums for anybody and that the whole thing was kind of dumb. But it had a run of like 10 years or more of this fantastic thing where there was amazing amounts of fees getting thrown around to people that would then give you your sticker. And so you could be stickerless or have a sticker. And then amazing amounts of costs were added to buildings that kind of, for the most part, in a lot of ways, made them less environmentally sensitive, cost more, and function worse. The whole thing to me was just sort of fabulous. And I kind of just had flashed on it that it's kind of softly and quietly gone away because there was a building. What made me think of a building for sale, LEED Platinum building available for sale, vacant.
So to those who are listening, if you go to, there's a website called greenplaque.com, like the plaques they give you. So you go to greenplaque.com and you can buy LEED Platinum stickers for $62. So if you're looking for a gift for your building or a gift for LPs or you just want to cause general havoc in the market, nobody gives you shit. So just buy a bunch and send them out to people. Stick them on everything you buy. We're looking at a portfolio of up Section 8 deals, and I think I might just buy like a dozen of these things and stick them on everything we look at.
Trust us. This is LEED. It's OS board exterior, but it's LEED. Trust us.
Yeah. Brett,
did you know, and this is true, did you know that of the mattresses that are in the ocean, 98% of them were generated by Section 8 properties? It's true fact. You can check it. You can check it.
I can't prove the negative, but it sure tracks with my experience.
Brett, which is a lead in. Let's talk about this guy piping in on mattresses. Let's do a little introduction here.
Yeah. So Kyle OHare, go ahead and give us a little background on who you are, how people can get in touch with you, what kind of weird you're up to.
People can, you can always follow me on Twitter. My name is hard to spell, as Elliot pointed out before we started the camera. So my handle is not. It's FinanceGuy725. I was at a hedge fund before doing this. And by doing this, I mean buying people's contractual obligations and forcing them to live up to them.
Wow, what a novel concept, Kyle. You mean you're asking people to do what they agreed to do?
I do that frequently, and they are shocked.
Wow, yes, you have to.
They are always shocked.
The friendly sort of fellow you want to have at your cocktail party.
This sounds similar to like when I tell a tenant, hey, I have this random empty apartment.
No, that doesn't count. That doesn't
I'd
count.
like
There's no
you to
bind. No. There's no.
And they
That's
go,
different. That's different. That's different. There's no binding agreements in housing. That has nothing to do with this.
Got it. So, right. So in your scenario, the counterparty should pay you the money. But in my scenario, rent is sort of optional.
Correct.
That tracks. That
Wow.
makes sense.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah,
Nailed it, Elliot. Nailed it.
Done. Well, we can just call this the podcast.
Works.
This has been super helpful. Brett, where are you? Are you in a church basement or something like that?
I would love to say yes, but in Florida here, we do not have any basements due to the pesky water level. But I'm down with some family in Southeast Florida, and there was a single-story office.
You can even see the humidity on the lens.
You can see the humidity, and you can tell he's got one of those dial-up connections because he's like fading in and out.
I'm doing the best I can.
I'm
waiting for the dial-up modem to
flickering fluorescent light behind him.
Yeah, but that is not lead. That light right there is not lead certified. I don't think.
Well, it could be soon. I'll send you a sticker.
Yeah, send me a couple of those. The building is lead certified now. Once I get them. But Elliot, going back to one of the questions you asked in an earlier podcast, I am here under my own will. I'm not being held. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was watching to see if you were blinking anything in Morse code. Not a ton new on our end. We're just seeing that people are kind of starting to work again. I feel like most of commercial real estate takes August off for some reason. So people are kind of plugging back in. We're seeing some deals. People are returning phone calls finally. We've got Kyle, are we going to get into kind of squirrely office deal or a squirrely multifamily deal today? What's your pleasure?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have my office, my actual not squirrely office deal is closing next week. Fingers fucking crossed. So yeah, keeping with the office theme, why don't we do a squirrely office deal? So how should am I going to do a narrative thing? Am I going to like show you guys the property?
Yeah,
what do you want to do?
Pull it up on the screen.
Talk about how you find these, find these arcane and bizarre opportunities to shake people down.
Sure. So let me.
I also loved your story about can I buy the loan? Yeah, sure. Can I buy the PG? It's not worth anything. Well, no, just sell me the guarantee for $10. That is my favorite.
Oh, that's part of my. I'm not going to talk about that on this podcast because I don't need this thing played in a deposition. But that's part of the office deal I have going down next week. I'm going to have fun with that.
You can talk about it. Nobody listens to this.
Yeah, right. No one's paying attention. I always tell my team everything you write in an email is going to get read back to you by a court reporter on a long enough timeline. So don't say anything too crazy.
Well, you should have told me that before I started a Twitter account.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought.
What's the line in a wedding crasher when Adam Sandler, the bride doesn't show up for the wedding and writes a note and basically saying I'm out, and he goes, well, that's information that would have been helpful yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me to Eric's question, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys. I'll pop the hood and actually show you guys how this works. So what I do, and let me share.
Can you maybe just like take one step back? Assume people have no idea what you're up to, and explain it in a way that a 5-year-old or a golden retriever can understand.
So I actually had to do this for one of my wife's like cousins. I think I did a pretty killer job. And he is like 7 years old. So I will make it a little bit. I'll do the 10-year-old edition, right? So I actually got into this because I was buying like distressed, just fee simple real estate, so regular old real estate. And I was doing it at foreclosure auctions. So like Connecticut is judicial. So the court holds a sale process, like kind of every judicial state, more or less, they basically auction the property off, right? They take the proceeds of that and that goes to the creditors, right? Just like a bankruptcy liquidation, it runs down the capital stack. So the first lien is usually like some mortgage company, right? Second lien is like you didn't pay your hospital bill and they sued you and attached to property, right? So that's the mechanism. So I wrote a script that would just go through, and the auctions all happen on Saturday at the property on premises, right? So you can't go to all of them. So I had to pick which ones to go to. So I just wrote some code that would email all of the attorneys who were conducting the auctions and say, what's the plaintiff's bid, aka what is the creditor going to bid? What's the starting bid, basically, right, at that auction? And is the sale going forward, right? If the sale, like a bankruptcy, you could kick the sale. You could file something with the court to try to kick the sale, right? So those are my two questions. And one of those attorneys for a deal, I was like, I can go into that, emailed me the next week and said, there was a bankruptcy. We saw you were interested. The bank wants to sell the loan. And I was like, that sounds like fun. How hard could this be? The answer is really hard. But they sold me the loan for like 40 cents on the dollar because, and this is actually a pro tip. If the bank is selling you the loan for 40 cents on the dollar, it means it is a disaster, and do not buy it.
Yeah.
But that was the first one I did.
Every one of us on this call, Brett as a broker, me in affordable housing, Eric in retail and all kinds of crazy industrial conversion projects, each one of us has said early in that journey, oh, affordable housing, cool. How hard could that be?
What about you guys giving me a hard time for being a broker a few weeks ago? And you're like, this is easy. And
oh, no, Brett, we know that job's not hard. We've already established that. No, I've really
it's so easy. It's come play with me. Come play with us.
Yeah. How much money have you made since we started the podcast?
Let me check my bank account. $2.7 million. Yeah, I'm going fishing later on today. I'll probably be another 2.7 on the fishing trip.
I commend Brett because I could never do the broker thing because I would actually go to jail for assault or something. Like there's no way. Elliot said, explain it to, a kid or a Labrador retriever from margin call. I actually can't explain to people. They have to be for me, they have to be at gunpoint. Like I can't deal with it otherwise, which is why the buying loans thing is so great because they're at a figurative gunpoint, right? So if you buy the loan, right? I mean, you're effectively the bank now. You're the guy who has you have some control, right? You have some ability to do some stuff. So on that first deal, genius plan, right? Paid 40 cents for the paper, going to show up at the auction and bid, I don't know, 70 cents and laugh because I didn't even have to touch the real estate. And what actually happened was it was 20 degrees and snowing the day of the auction, so no one showed up. So I ended up with the real estate, which was really, really terrible.
Awesome.
Congratulations, you're the winner.
That was the first one.
Congratulations, you're the winner.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So if someone wants to get into this business, I mean, first, I think the recommendation is probably don't because it's a terrible way to make a living, and you would advise people against doing the same horrible thing.
You have to really like lawyer. You have to like legal bills. You have to like lawyers. You have to like litigation. Yeah. Anytime I buy something, you're buying a lawsuit. Right. Like you're guaranteed to have some kind of suit. It could be you suing them. It could be them suing you. It could be it could be town trying to sue you. It could be anything.
So if I'm going to buy a $10 million loan, I think the real estate's worth 20. I think I can buy the loan for 10. How much capital do I actually need? Because it's not just the 10, and you don't want to start doing note on note and that kind of shit. So it's not just the 10, and it should be some percentage where, because things can go sideways. So if someone wants to buy a $10 million loan, how much capital should they really have to sort of weather the storm associated with all that?
So if you're going to buy a $10 million loan unlevered, and honestly, the notional doesn't really matter that much in terms of it does, but indirectly, right? So I'll usually figure and this is why smaller generally doesn't work. Like if you pencil in, you're going to spend 50 grand in legal up front, 10 grand in legal a month for the next 2 years. But this, and to be clear, this thing is very, very jurisdictional specific numbers, right? These are Connecticut numbers. I'm in a deal in New York. I like the genius I am. I bought it. It's 16 years in the foreclosure, right? And it's okay, that's not good. And judgment entered in 2009 or 8. So they've had judgment for a long time, and they're still not out of it, right? So the underwrite is super, super specific to the courts.
How many of those years are yours?
I bought it in June of last year, so 1.5, call it. Yeah. The longest. So I like to be conservative and figure 2 years, 10 grand a month for legal, right? And then you have to figure basically anything that's senior to you in the capital stack, right? So taxes, you're going to be responsible for those if you get title. Water, sewer, anything that has government-ish priority, in terms of the lien, you have to figure that you're going to pay, again, 2-ish years of that. And that's what I underwrite as sort of my like worst case. Because to be honest with you, I've never been in Connecticut. I've never been in anything for more than 9 months.
What I like about you stepping in year 16 of a protracted foreclosure is that scene from Arrested Development where the couple's sitting on the bed and they're like, did it ever work for those people? No, but they somehow delude themselves into thinking it might. Yeah. But it might work for us.
Right. Well, if you can believe it, and this is going to shock everyone on this call, the attorneys sucked.
Yeah.
That was a big part of the issue.
All right. So we're, and for those who are listening and not watching, Kyle is an aristocrat who drinks his Celsius out of a glass mug.
Keep it classy, San Diego.
I do. It's one of those double wall insulated ones too. For folks
you are classy
on the audio.
You edition. Are classing up the.
So we got a rough idea what you're doing. Let's talk about maybe a specific deal, and if you think that there's things in that deal that other people could pick up something from, and go from there.
Sure. So Eric asked a great question before we got on this other riff, which was, how do I find this shit? And honestly, sourcing is like a big part of the magic. So let me just go ahead and show you guys this real quick. So this is my internal, and if you notice the dates, right? Like, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, like a half dozen of these suits were literally filed today. So what I do, right, if you think about distress, right, there's actually a lot of different ways of sniffing it out, right? Someone could have unpaid and I'm talking about like publicly available places you can look.
Talk about the folder name first. Is this dockets P00?
Dockets P00.
Okay.
Yes.
You thought it was dockets poo?
Well, is he talking about all the shit that he sifts through? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
It is P00. That's the case code for. So we collect every day. We collect every civil suit that gets filed in Connecticut. P00 is the case code for foreclosure actions. So this is state court dockets, right? And I'll hop into one and I'll show you what it looks like. Right. So this is a foreclosure. It got filed today. You'll notice the clerk was too lazy to plug in the property address. And here's where this gets really fun. We have the property address right here. How did we get that? We got it because we used AI. That's right. We're $1 billion company, baby. Here it is. We used AI to read it out of the complaint, right? So the complaint is a free form. It's not right. It's a free form attorney drafted document that outlines what exactly went down and why exactly this suit is being brought. And so we have AI. This is actually not just a PDF. It's the most evil form of PDF, which is an image PDF. So this is a scan of a piece of paper because all these attorneys don't know how to do anything else, right? Look at it. So what we do, our data ingestion pipeline basically takes the relevant docs out of the suit, right? If they're image files, which almost all of them are, we do an OCR little pipeline on that. So OCR is just optical character recognition. So it takes like this and turns it into readable text. We feed the readable text into an LLM. We use OpenAI because we're not that fancy. And then from there, we do what's called like the use case is document Q&A, right? So we ask, not we, but the algorithm, our backend system asks questions of the document and feeds us back answers, right? So like, for example, on this one, because the clerk was too lazy to plug the property address into the field, we go to the complaint and ask the LLM, please, tell us we probably don't say please. It doesn't sound like something I would say. We say, tell us the collateral address, right? And then it reads through the complaint and comes back and says, whoop, this is the collateral address. Other like the loan amount, let's go back to this tab, right? Like the loan amount, right? Where is the mortgage recorded in terms of the book and page on land records? Attorney contact info, right? That's all that we read out of the complaint. And then we collect it here. This is Retool, which is like, I think, pretty cool software because I hate building front end shit. It's kind of for idiots who can't code that well. Definitely not me. But we use Retool to basically take all the that we collect, right, and put it in a dashboard like this, so that I can take a look at it and spot opportunities and act on them.
So what's the opportunity? Because I see right here, loan amount $274,000. This is maybe a single family home or duplex. So you get a bunch of this stuff. I get how you end up with the information. What is it about the information where you think, you know what? I think that the collateral is worth more than the loan amount. I'm going to try and get involved here. Like, what questions are you asking yourself?
Yep. So I eliminate basically everything that's residential because it's a fiasco and small dollars and not worth it.
Yep.
The ultimate, even if you were trying to do smaller dollar things, you would want to stay away from residential. And the reason for that is, right, residential has a statutory right to reinstatement. And what does that mean? That means if somebody didn't pay their loan for 10 years and you bought it and they had 20 years left on it, they could show up with a duffel bag full of cash the day of the foreclosure sale to get current, and all of a sudden you got 20 years left on this 5% loan, right? So
yeah.
I think
we're going to have
bad news.
We're going to have to put a disclaimer on this recording that we're moving far away from a program for dumb guys.
Yeah, this is getting.
Yeah, this is the outlier episode for people who know how to read.
I'm picturing all the real estate ogres when they hear the word LLM.
Yeah.
Well, I used to be a special assets guy, Kyle, at a bank, and this is a whole different level right here.
You find something that's office, industrial. It's not single family. It's when you say not residential, you'll do multifamily, but you won't do single family. Or you won't do any.
Correct. So I will not do anything that's owner occupied. Number one, that's just, even for me, that seems like nasty work. And the reinstatement thing is a real killer. Like, you don't want, it's unlikely, but why take that risk, right? My funding leg is obviously way higher than a lot of these single family mortgages that were originated from like 2015 to 2022, right? So that is just throw that out. So, and what that means practically, right, is the vast majority of this stuff is not interesting to me, right? And that's the reason that we process all of it. And this is just my general, I mean, I studied math in undergrad. I am a bit of a fucking freak about this, which is I like to be able to see the universe. Like, if I'm going to do a fucking project, here's my ideal, or here's my sort of like creative process when I put something like this together, right? I'll do a deal and I'll be like, that was sick. How do I find all of those deals? And so that's where something like this comes in, right? Because we're not just doing this.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things we talk about with some regularity is that you need to understand the universe of what's out there so you can distill it down to what is actually going to be interesting to you without understanding, no investment is good or bad in a vacuum, right? It's all relative to your other options at that
also
time.
True.
So if you're scraping all of this information, you sort of understand, like you say, you understand the universe and you can pick out a few things that work.
So this is and this is kind of the kiddie edition of this. We're working on kind of like the 2.0, if you will, which is going to incorporate some of the other channels that I watch for distress, right? So tax delinquency is a big one. Code enforcement action is a big one. Suits that involve, this one's pretty nuts. Actually, it's too crazy to show you, so I'll just.
It's a real estate version of high frequency trading.
Yeah. That's a good line.
You're like getting out in front of all the other.
You know what my favorite parlor trick is with this, and I'll do it to banks that know me, right? They'll have a foreclose, and who knows why their credit guys don't just tell me about their problems before they have to file, but they don't. So they'll file, and the same day I'll email them and be like, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" And they're like, "How did you know about that?
How'd you know?
That's crazy." Right. So yeah, I mean, it's incredible visibility and being able to see these different channels, because there's obviously distress exists on a spectrum, right? So missing a property tax payment by a month is not the same as being a year delinquent, right? Being a year delinquent on taxes is not the same as having a foreclosure filed on you by your first mortgage, right? But what I'm sort of always endeavoring to do is go further upstream, right? Because if you can get so here, I'll give you an example, right? I saw a property that was a multifamily property that was property tax delinquent in June. I think they owed about a year. Okay, so they owe like 500 grand of taxes. I know the first lien very well. I hit them and I said, hey, just a heads up, this guy's delinquent. They came back and said, yeah, we called him. He said he's not. And I said, okay, here's the bill from the tax collector, so you can tell me who you believe. And they said,
trying to help you.
Hold on a minute. We're gonna call him back. They called him back, right? And they said, why the did you lie to us about this? And he said, oh, it was a mistake. It's a mistake. I'll pay it. He paid it. They emailed me 3 weeks ago and said, just a heads up, this guy didn't make the July P&I payment.
Shocked.
Yeah. And I was like, perfect. And they were like, do you want to buy it? $27 million loan. Collateral value is probably more like 35 to 40. I haven't finished my underwrite yet. Like penalty rate is 18. Dude's in default. Like just killer deal. And they told me, I mean, the head of credit's like, you were on this thing. Like, we'll sell it to you. We're not going to market it. Like, if you want it, you can have it. I am going to have to pay something close to par because this lender is smart. They know it's worth par. They know it's over collateralized. But, that's the kind of I hate brokered processes. I hate competing. I like to, in my perfect world, it's me and the head of credit. And I'm explaining to them why they don't want this bag of and why they should let me suffer with it, not them. And that's how most of my shit happened.
You brought up a great point there, but so having been a special assets guy, and I think that was the best learning experience I got about real estate. If you can identify the problem early, and more importantly, make it go away in a hurry to where they're not writing it down every quarter, that's exactly what they want. I mean, that's kind of hitting the easy button for a bank versus trying to manage something for 12, 18 months.
Yep. And that's the reason that I don't generally chase things need a big discount, because if it needs a big number one, like we said, if it needs a big discount, it could be a clusterfuck for me. But number two, if it needs a big discount to make sense for me, that means there's somebody on the special asset side or on the credit side at the bank who's going to have to walk into the committee like Joe Pesci and Goodfellas and get, basically stick their neck out for me, some random dickhead, and they're not going to do it. Right. So I don't chase that needs a discount. I chase and I'm acting like, oh, this is my, I started this policy probably like 2 years ago, and it has saved me so much headache, because if somebody's they want to see it themselves. They want to get the REO and realize the market for it is crap, right? If I'm going to send someone a stink bid, I'm going to think about it for 5 seconds, hit send. They're going to tell me to myself, and then all good. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, right? So, when I running something down and like actually underwriting it and figuring out, am I going to do this? It has to be something that at first glance, I think I'm paying 90 something for, right?
The basic business model is you've got a computer set up that goes through, finds dirt on somebody, then you narc them out to their lender. and then you say, I'm here to help.
Snitching as a service. That's awesome. That's what SAAS stands for. Snitching as a service. So,
it's Kyle at Narc Capital Management.
Narc Capital.
But hold on real quick, Kyle. It's also pretty eye-opening that you're having to call the senior lender and identifying a problem before they even know it's a problem.
Well, that's not that eye-opening. You worked at a
I'm with Kyle on this one.
Well, but I think I would think for people that hadn't worked at a bank or people that hadn't bought notes, and just the concept that there's banks out there, from community banks to money center banks, that don't realize they have a problem, but people outside the bank know it's a problem before they do. I mean, that, I hear what you're saying, It's not shocking to me, but I think for a lot of
It
people
might be shocking. Here's something that's also pretty interesting, and this is actually super important to understand about the sourcing side of this. I'm actually not going to name names, but pick a lender who's fucked. Pick a lender who's fucked.
Sure.
If you call their credit people and say, hey, you got any dog in my market? They'll say, oh, no, of course not.
Right.
No.
Everything's great.
We make great
performing.
loans. We make great loans. Why calling us? Call the guys down the street. They probably have something. We got nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
If you call them and say, hey, 123 Main Street, that that guy is toast, right? They'll be like, oh, he knows. He knows about that guy. And then they'll be like, well, what do you want to do? What's your price? You want? But if you go to them with nothing, right? You could be the FDIC with a mustache, right? They're not going to tell you. You got to go to them with a particular deal that's on the ropes and say, hey, what about this? And then they'll be like, yeah, we actually really don't like that guy. Maybe it can go away.
I had a debt fund tell me, I told them that I thought certain loans were worth 70 cents on 70% of par. And their response was, we're not experiencing any distress. And I said, and I haven't spoken to them since. I said, well, if I had my head shoved that far up my own ass, I wouldn't be experiencing anything either. And I thought I'd built a rapport with the guy where I could say that. I was like, well, if I had my head shoved up my own ass, I probably wouldn't be experiencing much either. And he was like, that's uncalled for. and hung up, and that was it. I misread the room. It's like, God damn it.
Well, the even more inappropriate thing to say is that's not what your back leverage told me.
Wow. Yeah, I am fond of asking debt funds, how's that warehouse relationship holding up? Which is a question they don't like to hear.
So that kind of thing. And actually, to step back and give some market color into today's world, it's actually super interesting, right? People are doing some wild in the market now, like reading loan docs. And why are they reading loan docs?
Whoa, what?
Yeah, I know. I was doing it before it was cool, and now people are coming around on it. Why are people reading loan docs? And the answer to that question is because the FDIC is reading loan docs. So the FDIC is looking at shit. So even rewind 6 months, right? 6 months ago, it didn't matter. Pretend and extend. You want a mod. You want whatever you want. You got it. You're Mr. Borrower. You're in trouble. We get it. It makes sense. We're going to help you out. Not a big deal. Let's keep the book looking nice for the quarter. That's gone. So the FDIC is actually looking at loan docs with special attention to loans that need extensions or maturities or like modifications, what have you. And they're saying, yeah, he's making the payments, but he's in a lot of other kinds of default. Can you actually mod this guy basis can you actually extend this guy basis the docs that you signed with him? And if the answer is no, there's a problem. And the answer is no for a lot of these. So, and it's an interesting sort of knock on. The way I like to frame it is, right, ultimately some of the money somewhere is coming from a bank. So you might say, well, it has got nothing to do with me. I borrow money from debt funds. But who do your debt funds borrow money from?
Right, who are they borrowing money from?
Somewhere, somebody is touching some FDIC regulated somebody. And the FDIC is looking at everything now. And so it feeds through, right? So all of a sudden, somebody who's got back leverage from Churchill or Goldman now has to basically, answer to the FDIC more or less, because Churchill and Goldman both touched the FDIC at some point, and the FDIC is looking at their and saying, well, what's going on with this, right? So this, literally in the last 6 months, right, the market in terms of the approach to this thing has completely changed. And so, all the luminaries on Twitter who were like, oh, nothing's going to happen, just going to get pretended and extended away, no worries. That's not happening. And the bank, the FDIC is actually on high alert because of all the CRE, asset values collapsing and the bank runs and collapses that we had last year, right? So there's a lot of opportunity now. There's going to be a lot of opportunity going forward because you're not in a zero rates world where money is free and anybody can just refi out of anything like that. Like there's actually going to have to be some proper workout going down. And the FDIC and some of these people are sort of forcing the issue by saying, you can't just extend. This guy's in other kinds of default. You can't just extend him. So it's really it's a super interesting time.
What would an example be of another default? So you haven't paid, you're in a payment default, or you're past maturity, you're in a maturity default. What are other things?
So the big red line defaults, and this is actually this is a great underwriting question. So when I look at things, I like to see big red line defaults, right? I don't like non-monetary defaults like guy didn't submit his financials or guy didn't send us his tax returns. Like judges generally don't like those. So I also don't like them. Technically they are defaults. And the FDIC actually super interesting, right? The FDIC takes them as seriously as monetary defaults. So and I'm seeing this now. Banks are offering me paper with those lesser non-monetary defaults, still at par, but they are offering it saying, hey, we actually, for what we have to reserve for this now, makes no sense to sit on this, right? So those are some lesser non-monetary defaults, right? Failing to turn in your financials, failing to turn over your tax returns, failing to hit your DSCR coverage covenants, right? Failing to maturity defaults, obviously, payment defaults, obviously, taking other liens that are subsequent in right to your first lien is a default, generally speaking, without written permission from your first lien. Not paying your taxes.
What are the big juicy red ones? Would be taxes or taking on another lien. What are
taxes? Tax non-payment is great. Taking on other liens is great. Maturity is fantastic. Payment is also good, right? Those are the ones that I like the most, because a judge is going to say, especially if it's a commercial transaction, which again, like we said, I don't buy owner-occupied notes. If it's a commercial transaction, judges can say, well, you're not holding up your end of it. And it's a pretty material piece of the agreement that you're not holding up. Whereas some of the lesser ones, a judge might say, why here, the guy didn't send you his financials.
Yeah, right.
Well, and then I think the crux of all this, though, Kyle, is that, let's say you and I bought whatever for $1 and we got 75 cents leverage or 75%. Its values have eroded on most everything in the market today. So, I mean, I think the leverage point is probably a default too, or is a default.
Yeah, right? No, that's another good point. I mean, there's usually something around like collateral values relative to loan amounts. That's also one. That one is also dicey though, right? Because it's kind of like whose value, which is another reason that's not my favorite kind of default. You're beholden to the appraiser. Right?
Right, it's too subjective.
But something interesting, you talk about the 70 cents, right? That's a pretty common advance rate for a debt fund to have from their back leverage, right? So if they're lending 70 cents to a borrower, right, call it 50 cents of that, they're borrowing from a credit line. And the thing that's super interesting, right, and this you're just starting to see this now, and it's so fucking cool. The lines guys are saying you can't. I bought a loan like this in July. They told the lender, the back leverage guys told the lender, you can't extend him. And they said, well, what do you mean we can't extend him? And they said, you cannot extend him. And they said, well, he asked for one. He kind of qualifies for it. And they're like, we don't give a you can't extend him. So they basically had a choice, right? Do we buy the thing out of the line and just go all equity on it, or do we puke it? And they sold it to me for 93 cents, which is a great deal because the thing is way over collateralized. But they were a forced sell, right? Their line squeezed them, and you're not at a place where. So the back leverage guys right now, right? What are they doing? They're taking their shittiest lenders and they're squeezing them. So they're pushing them to either buy shit out. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing. They're saying that's just popping up.
You either have to buy this out, or you have to sell the paper. We don't care what. We don't care what you do, but we need our money back. We're out.
Right. Give us our
money
back.
You're not seeing the really aggressive enforcement. And most back leverage facilities are structured like this, right? You would say, well, what if you default on your line? Technically, those guys control all the collateral. They have all the mortgages. Or they have assignments of the mortgages written out already from you to them. So they can take the collateral from you like that, right? Zero your equity, done, goodbye. If you're a bridge lender. You're not seeing that kind of aggression And the reason you're not is because if you think about it, this is a massive multi-billion-dollar business for the guys who do this. They're not going to get the knives out on somebody and like get everybody in a panic. But what they are doing is they're having some hard phone calls so that they don't have to get to that point and freak the whole market out saying, oh, did you guys see that Goldman fucking took the knives out on lender X, right? So we're not there. We're not doing that yet, but we're doing the other thing, which is that the back leverage is squeezing original lender and saying, hey, what are you doing here? We're not going to give you more rope. So pay us.
What's your plan? Yeah. Yep. You pay me.
Maybe.
And then when they get squeezed by the back lender, the debt funds, I mean, what they're going to have to write down, or the losses they're going to realize, are all basically the promotes for the partners of whatever fund that is. So from an alignment of interest standpoint, you got to, if anyone ever tells you it's not about the money, it's 100% about the money. But that's why the debt funds are so reticent.
Unless you're in Resi.
Yeah, true. But that's why, that's why the to your point, the money center banks or the big boys are saying, give us our money back. And the debt fund guys are like, oh, hope is a part of our strategy that values come back. It's not a good, how would that play in your MBA case study? Our number one business plan here is hope.
Right. Kyle, this has been excellent. I appreciate it. Tons of fun today.
Should I do an actual deal? I know we just started about my process in the market, but I can run you guys through an actual deal pretty quick.
I think this is super helpful. I don't know that we need to dig into a deal. This is, I think, more than enough for people. It's almost more beneficial for people to understand the thought process and the strategy and some of the machinations of the system. So super helpful. Really, really glad you're on.
Also, I think it's important to know, if you are in the real estate business and you see Kyle, don't make eye contact.
Nope.
Give it a wide berth.
Nope.
Don't leave any.
I actually had to.
Don't leave any loose papers on your desk.
So it's a bit. I mean, admittedly, I have seen my tweets in court filings, which is fun. But I try to. I actually now that you can Google my name and find like our exciting conversation today. I have had to make it clear to counterparties that like my name should not show up anywhere. Like, put my entity names wherever you like, but don't mention. So like, I was doing a walkthrough of something in July with the current lender, and they were like, well, who from your side is coming? And I was like, oh, I'm not coming. Tell them somebody else is going. And then I showed up, and she was like, I thought you weren't gonna. And I was like, I'm not Kyle, I'm somebody else.
Also, Kyle, if you reach out to a borrower or a credit officer at a bank, you may not know your loans in default, but Kyle knows your loans in default.
True. It's true. I actually, and this is one of the rules I'm very fond of playing by. I'm represented by counsel. Do not talk to me. But periodically you will find a borrower who insists on talking to me, and my attorney's, he's always like, this is not a good idea. You should talk to me. This is right. I had a guy who, like, I was like, you have 5 minutes and don't waste it. And he was like, okay, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, but do you think that I didn't talk to your previous lender? And I don't know that this is the same that you told them for 18 months. And he was like, and I was like, well, one more time, run it back. Tell it to me again, but have a real plan. He said the exact same thing a second time. I said to my attorney, I said, Mike, thank you for setting this up. The 5 minutes are not up, but this guy has nothing to say. So I'm going to hang up now. And if he ever asks to speak to me again, you can tell him to with that, because he wasted his one shot at this. Goodbye. And I hung up, and that was it. and so, yeah, I actually generally don't talk to them because I can only interact with them like that, which is not always productive. But in that instance, it was necessary for that guy. So
it's not personal. It's just business, right?
It's not personal. I didn't know you before you didn't pay your property taxes. Nothing personal.
And now that I do know you, I still don't care.
Now that I know you, I don't like you. So yeah. But
Gents,
this was great, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you.
No worries. If you boys want to do another one of these where instead of this I do a deal, I'm happy to run through deals. I love deals.
I have a feeling we'll get you back on. This was a ton of fun.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right.
For sure.
Thanks, guys.